Dr. Zethkar stood before the massive viewing screen in his laboratory, watching the final data streams pour in from the deep space sensors. 3 years of careful study were coming to an end. The yellow star called Sol and its third planet had been under constant observation by the most advanced equipment the Galactic Taxonomic Academy could provide. The hegemony scientist adjusted his breathing apparatus and reviewed the atmospheric readings one more time. The numbers were clear and terrible. High radiation levels across the entire planet's surface, toxic gas concentrations in the atmosphere that would kill most known life forms within minutes, chemical signatures that told the story of massive industrial pollution, followed by what could only be described as planetary suicide. Another civilization that destroyed itself, Zethkar whispered to his assistant, a young Centauran named Veltar. The patterns are always the same. Veltar looked up from his datapad, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. The nuclear signature suggests they achieved atomic weapons approximately 300 of their local years ago. The devastation appears to have occurred roughly 200 years back. Zethkar nodded slowly. In his 40 years of studying dead worlds, he had seen this story play out dozens of times. A species would develop technology faster than wisdom. They would split their planet into competing nations. Eventually, fear and hatred would drive them to unleash weapons that could crack their own world open like an egg. What was their name for themselves? Zethkar asked. Though he already knew the answer would join hundreds of other forgotten species names in the Academy's files. The linguistic analysis of their old radio transmissions suggests they called themselves humans, Veltar replied. Bipedal mammals, carbon-based. They showed remarkable creativity in their art and music before the end. The old scientist pulled up images from the planet's surface. Cities lay in ruins, their metal skeletons twisted by heat and time. Vast areas that had once been green with plant life were now brown and dead. The polar ice caps had melted and refrozen several times, leaving strange patterns that spoke of climate chaos. Any signs of survivors in underground bunkers? Hidden colonies? Zethkar asked. It was standard procedure to check for remnant populations, though they rarely found any after this much time. Negative. We've scanned every cave system, every potential shelter site. The radiation levels would have penetrated most underground facilities within 50 years. Even if some humans had survived the initial catastrophe, they would have died out long ago. Zethkar felt the familiar weight of sadness that came with cataloging another extinct species. The humans had been so close to joining the galactic community. Their radio technology suggested they were perhaps only decades away from developing faster-than-light communication. They might have been exploring their own solar system by now if they had not destroyed themselves first. Were they aware of us? Zethkar asked. Did they know there was a galaxy full of life waiting for them? Veltar checked his records. Their radio telescopes were quite advanced for their level of development. They had identified several potentially habitable worlds around other stars. Some of their scientists had theorized about the possibility of alien life, but there's no evidence they ever detected our presence. The tragedy of it struck Zethkar like a physical blow. Somewhere in those final years, human scientists had probably looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. They had died never knowing that millions of species across the galaxy lived in peace and prosperity, never knowing that their own violent tendencies could have been overcome with time and wisdom. Compile the final report, Zethkar ordered. Classification: biologically extinct, Class 7 civilization collapse. Cause: nuclear warfare with secondary environmental devastation. Estimated time of extinction: 200 standard years. No surviving populations detected. Veltar's fingers moved quickly across his datapad. Should I mark the system for future monitoring? No, Zethkar said firmly. There's nothing left to monitor. Remove Sol 3 from all active survey schedules. Flag the system as a dead zone for mining operations only. The report would be transmitted to Academy headquarters within the hour. Within a week, it would be distributed to universities across the galaxy. The humans would become another case study for young xenobiologists to examine. Another example of why the Academy's strict first contact protocols existed. The Academy only made contact with species that had achieved interstellar travel on their own. Too many civilizations had been destroyed by premature contact with advanced technology. Better to let them develop naturally, even if it meant watching some of them destroy themselves along the way. Sethkar walked to his personal quarters and poured himself a glass of Altarian wine. The bitter taste matched his mood perfectly. In his early years as a xenobiologist, the discovery of extinct civilizations had filled him with scientific excitement. Now, after cataloging over 30 dead worlds, each one felt like attending a funeral for people he had never met. He activated his personal communication device and began recording his private log entry, personal notes on the Sol 3 extinction event. The humans showed remarkable potential in their final centuries. Their art, music, and literature demonstrate a depth of emotion and creativity rarely seen in developing species. Their scientific advancement was rapid, perhaps too rapid for their own good. Sethkar paused the recording and looked out the window of his space station at the distant yellow star. Somewhere around that star, a beautiful blue planet continued its silent orbit, carrying the ruins of a species that had reached for the stars but never quite grasped them. If the humans had survived another 100 years, he continued, they might have developed the wisdom to match their technology. Their early space exploration showed promise. They had begun to see their planet as a single interconnected system, but fear and nationalism proved stronger than hope and unity. The recording device chimed softly, indicating that his personal log had been saved. Sethkar finished his wine and began preparing for the long journey back to Academy headquarters. His work here was done. The humans were gone, and the galaxy was a little bit smaller and sadder for their loss. 3 days later, the report was filed and approved. Dr. Sethkar's analysis was accepted without question by the Academy Review Board. His reputation as the galaxy's foremost expert on extinct civilizations ensured that no one would doubt his conclusions. The Sol system was officially removed from all monitoring schedules. The yellow star and its dead third planet would drift through space forgotten, just another entry in the Academy's vast catalog of civilizations that had reached too high and fallen too far. Academy students would read about the humans in their textbooks, studying them alongside the ruins of the Vorthan Empire and the scattered remnants of the Keltar Confederation. They would write papers analyzing the final radio transmissions from Earth, trying to understand what drove an entire species to destroy itself. But no one would ever return to check on the Sol system. The case was closed, the file sealed, and the humans were officially extinct. Dr. Sethkar's reputation as a careful and thorough scientist ensured that his word would be the final judgment on the fate of humanity. The galaxy moved on, unaware that in the distant Sol system, something impossible was about to happen. 2 years after Dr. Sethkar filed his final report on the Sol system, Junior Survey Specialist Kira Moth received the assignment that would change galactic history. She stared at the mission briefing on her datapad with growing irritation. Asteroid mining survey in a dead system. It was busy work, punishment duty for her recent troubles at the Academy. Sol system mineral assessment, she read aloud in her small dormitory room. Catalog metallic asteroids in the belt region. Check for salvageable technology from extinct civilization. Duration 4 standard weeks. Kiramoth was a Centauran, tall and slender with the characteristic 4 eyes that gave her people excellent depth perception. She had joined the Academy's survey division with dreams of discovering new species and exploring unknown worlds. Instead, she spent her days cataloging space rocks and filing endless reports that no one ever read. The trouble had started 3 months ago when she questioned Professor Dralkett's lecture on proper survey techniques. She had suggested that the Academy's long-range sensors might miss subtle signs of life on distant worlds. The professor had not appreciated her criticism, especially coming from a junior specialist who had barely graduated from the basic training program. Now she was being sent to survey dead rocks around a dead star, where a dead species had once lived. It was as far from exciting discovery work as possible, but orders were orders, and Kiramoth needed this job to pay off her Academy training loans. Her small survey ship, the Wanderer, was nothing fancy. A basic faster-than-light drive, minimal life support, and enough cargo space to hold sample containers and survey equipment. The journey to Sol would take 12 standard days through hyperspace. As the hyperspace tunnel collapsed around her ship and normal space returned, Kiramoth got her first look at the Sol system. The yellow star burned steadily in the distance, surrounded by the usual collection of planets and debris that made up a typical stellar system. According to her charts, the third planet had once supported the humans. The fourth planet showed signs of ancient water flows, suggesting it might have been habitable billions of years ago. Beginning outer system sweep, she announced to her ship's log. The computer would record everything for her final report. All readings normal. No unexpected objects detected. Proceeding to asteroid belt for mineral survey. The work was exactly as boring as she had expected. Hour after hour of scanning rocky debris, taking samples and logging mineral compositions. Iron, nickel, silicon, traces of rare metals. Nothing that would justify the cost of a mining operation this far from civilized space. On her fourth day in the system, Kiramoth decided to take a closer look at the third planet. The humans were extinct, but their dead world might contain interesting archaeological artifacts. Perhaps she could find something worth studying, even if it wouldn't change her assignment. As her ship approached the inner system, her sensors began picking up strange readings. At first, she assumed it was interference from the star's solar wind, but as she drew closer, the signals became clearer and more structured. "That's impossible," she whispered, staring at her display screens. The readings showed organized electromagnetic emissions coming from the planet's surface. Not the random noise of natural phenomena, but patterned signals that looked suspiciously like communication networks. Her sensors also detected artificial light sources on the planet's night side, far too bright and too organized to be natural. Kiramoth ran a complete diagnostic on her sensor array. Everything checked out perfectly. The equipment was functioning normally, which meant the signals were real. But that was impossible. Dr. Zethkar himself had confirmed that the planet was dead. The great xenobiologist's reputation was built on his careful, thorough work. He didn't make mistakes. "Computer, analyze electromagnetic emissions from Sol 3, she ordered. The ship's artificial intelligence processed the data for several minutes before responding. Analysis complete. Emissions show characteristics consistent with advanced communication networks. Pattern complexity suggests technological civilization. Kiramoth felt her hearts racing. Both of them. Centaurans had two hearts, and right now both were pounding against her chest like trapped birds. If there was life on Sol 3, if the humans had somehow survived, this would be the discovery of the century. But if she was wrong, if this was some kind of equipment malfunction, reporting it would destroy her career. She moved her ship closer, staying well outside the planet's gravity well. Her long-range scanners revealed more impossible details, orbital structures that definitely hadn't been there during Dr. Zethkar's survey. Artificial satellites in organized patterns around the planet. What appeared to be space traffic moving between the planet and its large moon. "This is insane," she muttered. "How could we have missed this?" The answer came to her slowly as she studied the sensor data more carefully. The signals she was detecting were being transmitted on frequencies that the Academy's deep space sensors weren't designed to monitor. The orbital structures were built with materials that reflected very little light, making them nearly invisible to optical telescopes. It was almost as if the inhabitants were deliberately trying to remain hidden. But that raised an even more disturbing question. If the humans were alive and had developed this level of technology, why were they hiding? Did they know about the galactic community? Had they detected the Academy's survey missions? Kiramoth spent the next 3 days collecting every piece of data her ship could gather. She recorded the electromagnetic patterns, mapped the orbital structures, and tracked the movement of what could only be spacecraft between the planet and its moon. The evidence was overwhelming. Not only was the planet inhabited, but the inhabitants had achieved a level of technology that rivaled many Academy member species. The implications were staggering. If her readings were correct, the humans had not only survived their apparent extinction event but had used the time to advance their technology by centuries. They were actively spacefaring, with permanent installations throughout their local system. She sat in her pilot's chair, staring at the accumulated data and trying to decide what to do next. Protocol demanded that she report any signs of life immediately to Academy headquarters, but she knew exactly what would happen. Her superiors would assume her equipment was malfunctioning. They would order her to return for a full sensor calibration, and probably assign her to even worse duties for filing a false report. No one would believe that Dr. Zethkar had made such a massive error. The man was a legend in xenobiology circles. His survey techniques were taught in Academy textbooks. His reputation was beyond question, but the evidence was right there on her screens. The planet was alive, inhabited, and technologically advanced. Somehow, an entire species had been hiding in plain sight for over 200 years. Kiramoth made a decision that would change everything. Instead of immediately reporting to the Academy, she would conduct a more detailed investigation on her own. She needed undeniable proof before she could challenge Dr. Zethkar's conclusions. Moving her ship to the shadow of the planet's moon, she deployed her stealth observation drones. The small robotic scouts were designed for close-range surveys of dangerous areas. They could gather detailed information while remaining nearly undetectable. As the drones approached the planet's atmosphere, Kiramoth held her breath. In a few hours, she would have close-up images of the surface. She would know for certain whether the humans were really alive or whether she was chasing sensor ghosts and equipment failures. The fate of galactic history hung in the balance, though she didn't know it yet. The stealth drones transmitted their first images 6 hours after entering Earth's atmosphere, and Kiramoth nearly fell out of her pilot's chair. The surface of Sol 3 was not the dead wasteland that Dr. Zethkar had described. Instead, she was looking at a thriving, bustling world covered with cities, agricultural areas, and what appeared to be a healthy, green biosphere. By the 7 moons of Centaura, she whispered, zooming in on one of the drone feeds. They're everywhere. The humans were not just alive, they were prospering. The drone's cameras showed massive cities with buildings that reached toward the sky like metal and glass mountains. Vehicles moved through organized traffic systems on the ground, while flying craft moved through designated air corridors above them. The planet's night side blazed with artificial light in patterns that spoke of careful urban planning and abundant energy. More shocking still, the humans appeared to have completely recovered from whatever catastrophe had nearly destroyed them 2 centuries ago. The atmospheric readings showed clean air with oxygen levels that would support most galactic species. The radiation signatures that Dr. Zethkar had detected were gone, suggesting either remarkable environmental recovery or advanced cleanup technology. Kiramoth directed one of her drones to follow a group of human aircraft as they traveled between cities. The craft moved with precision and purpose, following established flight paths and communicating with ground control stations using sophisticated radio equipment. These were not the desperate survivors of a dying world. These were the activities of a confident, expanding civilization. Computer, begin linguistic analysis of human communications, she ordered. Her ship's translation systems went to work on the radio traffic the drones were intercepting. The Academy had developed universal translation programs that could decode most forms of communication, given enough sample data. After several hours of analysis, the computer began providing rough translations of human speech. What Kiramoth learned next almost made her turn around and flee the system immediately. The humans were not only aware of life beyond their world. They knew about the Galactic Academy. Her translation programs picked up fragments of conversations that mentioned alien surveillance, galactic community, and first contact protocols. The humans were discussing the galaxy beyond their solar system, with a level of knowledge that should have been impossible for a species that had never made official contact. How do they know about us? She asked herself, reviewing the translated conversations with growing alarm. The answer came gradually as more drone data arrived. The humans had been listening. For decades, possibly centuries, they had been intercepting galactic communications with increasingly sophisticated equipment. They knew about the major galactic powers, the Academy structure, and even details about specific member species. One conversation between human scientists made her blood run cold. They were discussing Project Looking Glass, an effort to monitor Academy survey missions and avoid detection by long-range sensors. The humans had known about Dr. Zethkar's survey. They had deliberately hidden their presence, making their world appear dead to outside observers. This is planned deception, Kiramoth realized. They've been hiding on purpose. The implications were terrifying. If the humans could fool the Academy's best xenobiologist for 3 years of intensive study, what else were they capable of? The technology required to mask an entire planet's biosignature while maintaining a spacefaring civilization was beyond anything most Academy species possessed. She directed her drones to investigate the space installations she had detected. What she found there made her question everything she thought she knew about technological development. The humans had constructed massive orbital platforms that served as manufacturing centers, research facilities, and what appeared to be military installations. The military aspect troubled her most. The humans had weaponized their space platforms with systems that her sensors couldn't fully analyze. Whatever energy sources they were using, whatever defensive capabilities they had developed, they were unlike anything in the Academy's databases. "They're preparing for something," she muttered, studying the orbital defense networks. But what? More disturbing discoveries followed. The humans had established mining operations throughout their solar system, extracting resources from asteroids and the outer planets with an efficiency that spoke of centuries of experience. They had built permanent bases on their moon, and were constructing what appeared to be interstellar communication arrays pointed at nearby star systems. This was not a species that was hiding from fear or ignorance. This was a species that was hiding while they prepared to emerge as a galactic power. The humans had used their apparent extinction as cover for the most massive technological advancement in recorded galactic history. Kira Moth realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. Never in the Academy's records had they encountered a species that had deliberately concealed itself while developing interstellar capabilities. The humans had achieved in 2 centuries what most species took millennia to accomplish, and they had done it while remaining completely invisible to galactic observation. The question that haunted her was simple. What did they plan to do with all this technology? Her answer came when one of her drones intercepted a high-level government communication. Human leaders were discussing Phase 3 of something called the Emergence Protocol. They spoke of revealing themselves to the galaxy, but not as a newly spacefaring species requesting membership in the galactic community. They intended to emerge as an established power with technology and capabilities that would demand respect, rather than protection. They're going to shock the entire galaxy, she realized. They're planning to reveal themselves when they're ready, on their terms. The more she learned, the more impressed and frightened she became. The humans had turned their apparent weakness into incredible strength. While the galaxy mourned their extinction and moved on to other concerns, humanity had been quietly becoming one of the most technologically advanced species in known space. Their space-based manufacturing could produce materials and devices that the Academy had only theorized about. Their energy systems drew power from sources that her sensors couldn't identify. Their computer networks processed information at speeds that rivaled the galaxy's most advanced artificial intelligences. Most impressive of all, they had done it without any outside help. Every advancement, every breakthrough, every technological miracle had been achieved through their own research and development. They had become a galactic superpower while the galaxy thought they were extinct. Kira Moth spent 5 more days gathering intelligence, each discovery more remarkable than the last. The humans had developed faster-than-light communication systems that could reach across the galaxy in real time. They had created manufacturing techniques that could build space stations in weeks rather than years. They had solved energy problems that had puzzled galactic scientists for centuries. But perhaps most importantly, they had maintained perfect operational security for over 2 centuries. Not a single leak, not one detected transmission, not the slightest hint that they had survived their apparent extinction. It was a level of discipline and coordination that spoke of remarkable unity and purpose. As she prepared to leave the Sol system, Kira Moth faced the most important decision of her life. She could report her findings to the Academy and trigger the most significant first contact event in galactic history. Or she could keep silent and allow the humans to emerge according to their own timeline. The choice was taken away from her when her ship's communication system activated without her command. An incoming transmission was being received on frequencies that shouldn't have existed. The message was brief, transmitted in perfect galactic standard, and completely impossible. Survey Specialist Kira Moth, this is Dr. Sarah Chen of the Earth Deep Space Monitoring Initiative. We have been tracking your vessel since you entered our solar system. We believe it's time we had a conversation. Dr. Sarah Chen had been waiting for this moment for most of her adult life. As director of Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Initiative, she had spent the last 15 years preparing for the day when someone from the galactic community would finally discover humanity's continued existence. That day had arrived in the form of a confused young Centauran survey specialist whose stealth technology wasn't quite as stealthy as she believed. Contact confirmed, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from his position at the tracking station. The alien vessel has been monitoring us for 6 days. Long-range sensors detect multiple reconnaissance drones in our atmosphere. Sarah nodded calmly. Everything was proceeding according to the protocols that had been developed decades ago. The alien ship's arrival wasn't a surprise. Earth's deep space observation networks had detected it while it was still 3 days out from the solar system. Every moment of Kira Moth's investigation had been carefully monitored and recorded. Any signs that she's transmitted her findings to her superiors? Sarah asked. Negative. The ship hasn't sent any faster-than-light communication since arriving in system. She appears to be conducting an independent investigation. Perfect. That gave them time to control the narrative. Sarah activated her command console and began reviewing the files that Earth's intelligence services had compiled on survey specialist Kira Moth. Young, idealistic, recently disciplined for questioning academy procedures, she was exactly the type of person they needed for first contact. The truth about humanity's survival was far more complex than anything Kira Moth had discovered with her drones. The extinction event that Dr. Zethkar had observed had indeed occurred, but it hadn't been a complete planetary catastrophe. A limited nuclear exchange during Earth's late 20th century had briefly made the planet appear lifeless to distant observers. But humanity had survived in underground shelters and carefully shielded facilities. More importantly, humanity had been preparing for this moment since the early 21st century. The arrival of the first alien probe in 2019 had been kept secret from the general population, but it had triggered the most massive technological development program in human history. Engineers and scientists had reverse-engineered the alien technology, leading to breakthrough discoveries in physics, energy production, and materials science. Initiate Contact Protocol 7, Sarah ordered. I want full-spectrum analysis of her ship's capabilities. No hostile actions, but I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. The contact protocol had been refined through decades of simulation and planning. Humanity's first interaction with the galactic community would not be the desperate plea of a primitive species seeking protection. It would be the calculated revelation of a technological power that had chosen its moment to emerge. Earth's space-based monitoring systems had been tracking galactic communications for over a century. Human linguists and cryptographers had decoded thousands of alien languages. Anthropologists had studied the social structures of dozens of galactic species. Humanity knew more about the galactic community than most of its own members knew about each other. The decision to remain hidden had not been made lightly. Early analysis of galactic civilization had revealed troubling patterns. Species that made contact too early often found themselves dominated by more advanced civilizations. Their planets became mining colonies or tourist destinations. Their people became second-class citizens in a galaxy controlled by ancient established powers. Humanity had chosen a different path. They would emerge only when they could do so as equals, with technology and capabilities that would command respect rather than pity. The apparent extinction event had provided perfect cover for this strategy. Dr. Chen, called out Specialist Park from the communication station, we're receiving a tight beam transmission from the alien vessel. She's requesting permission to land for direct contact. Sarah smiled. Kira Moth was braver than her psychological profile had suggested. Most junior academy personnel would have fled the system immediately upon discovering an apparently extinct species was not only alive but technologically advanced. Instead, the young Centauran was willing to risk everything for the chance to make first contact. Grant permission for landing at Site 7, Sarah ordered. Full diplomatic protocol. I want her to understand exactly what humanity has become. Site 7 was one of Earth's primary first contact facilities, built specifically for this moment. Located in the Canadian Rockies, it showcased the best of human technology while remaining non-threatening. The facility was designed to impress without intimidating, to demonstrate capability without appearing aggressive. As Kira Moth's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, she was being guided by the most advanced traffic control system in the galaxy. Human AI networks tracked every molecule of exhaust from her engines, analyzed the composition of her ship's hull, and monitored the electromagnetic signatures of her equipment. By the time she landed, humanity would know more about Centauran technology than the Centaurans knew about human capabilities. Sarah reviewed the briefing materials one final time as she prepared to meet their first alien visitor. The moment required perfect balance. Too much revelation would frighten the galactic community, and potentially trigger a preemptive strike against Earth. Too little would perpetuate humanity's status as a backward, primitive species in need of guidance and protection. The truth was that humanity had already surpassed most galactic civilizations in several key technological areas. Human manufacturing techniques could produce materials stronger and lighter than anything in the Academy's databases. Human energy systems drew power from quantum vacuum fluctuations, providing virtually unlimited clean energy. Human computer networks utilized quantum consciousness interfaces that made galactic AI systems look primitive by comparison. Most importantly, humanity had developed all of this technology without the technological stagnation that plagued most galactic civilizations. While ancient species had become comfortable with incremental improvements to existing systems, humanity's rapid development had led to revolutionary breakthroughs that redefined what was possible. Landing confirmed, reported Torres. Alien shuttle has touched down at Site 7. Security teams are in position but maintaining non-aggressive postures as ordered. Sarah straightened her uniform and checked her appearance one final time. She would be the first human that Kiramoth met face to face. And first impressions would shape how the galactic community viewed humanity for generations to come. As she walked toward the landing platform, Sarah reflected on the magnitude of the moment. For over 2 centuries, humanity had existed in secret, watching and learning and preparing. Today, that preparation would be put to the test. Today, humanity would announce its return to the galaxy. The shuttle's airlock cycled open, and Kiramoth stepped onto Earth's surface for the first time. The young Centauran looked around with wide eyes, taking in the advanced technology that surrounded her. The landing facility alone demonstrated capabilities that most Academy species couldn't match. Sarah approached with measured steps, flanked by 2 security officers whose equipment was carefully chosen to appear professional, but not threatening. Behind them, the first contact facility rose like a testament to human achievement. Clean lines of advanced architecture that spoke of both artistic vision and engineering excellence. Survey Specialist Kiramoth, Sarah said in perfect galactic standard, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Welcome to Earth. I am Dr. Sarah Chen, Director of the Deep Space Monitoring Initiative. As you can see, reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated. Kiramoth stared at the offered hand, then at Sarah's face, then at the impossible facility surrounding them. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a mixture of awe and fear that Sarah had expected. This is impossible. Dr. Zethkar confirmed your extinction. The Academy's sensors, the atmospheric analysis, the radiation readings. Sarah's smile remained warm, but her eyes carried depths that spoke of knowledge far beyond what any galactic citizen should possess. Dr. Zethkar is an excellent scientist who saw exactly what we wanted him to see. Now shall we discuss what humanity can offer the galaxy? Kiramoth followed Dr. Chen through the corridors of the first contact facility, her 4 eyes trying to process everything she was seeing. The technology surrounding her was unlike anything in the Academy's databases. The walls seemed to be made of materials that shifted between transparency and opacity as needed. The lighting had no visible source but provided perfect illumination that adapted to her Centauran visual spectrum automatically. How long have you known? She asked as they walked. About the galaxy, about us, about the Academy? Dr. Chen paused beside a large viewing window that looked out over a valley filled with gleaming structures that could only be described as a small city. We've been monitoring galactic communications since the early 21st century. One of your survey probes crashed in our Arctic region in 2019. We've been learning ever since. Over 200 years, Kiramoth whispered. You've been watching us for 200 years. Learning from you, Sarah corrected gently. Your technologies, your languages, your social structures. We've been very careful students of galactic civilization. They entered a conference room where several other humans waited. Sarah introduced them as representatives of Earth's various governments and scientific institutions. Kiramoth noticed that they all spoke galactic standard fluently, and many of them wore devices that she didn't recognize but that clearly represented advanced technology. I don't understand, Kiramoth said, taking the seat that was offered to her. If you've had this technology for centuries, why hide? Why let the galaxy think you were extinct? Dr. Chen activated a holographic display that showed a timeline of galactic civilization. Hundreds of species were represented, but as the timeline progressed, Many of them changed color from independent civilizations to dependent colonies or protectorates. We studied the pattern, Sarah explained. Species that make contact too early often find themselves absorbed into existing power structures. They become junior partners in civilizations they had no hand in creating. Their worlds become resource extraction sites. Their people become second-class citizens. The hologram shifted to show specific examples. The Keltar had been a proud warrior species until they made contact with the hegemony. Within 50 years, they had become a client state providing military services to their technological superiors. The Vash had been master artists and philosophers until contact with the Academy turned their homeworld into a cultural preserve and tourist destination. We chose a different path, Dr. Chen continued. We would emerge only when we could do so as technological equals. The apparent extinction event provided perfect cover for our development. Kiramoth studied the timeline, her mind racing. But the resources this would have taken, the coordination required. How did you hide an entire planetary civilization? One of the other humans, introduced as General Martinez, answered that question. We didn't just hide. We thrived. While the galaxy thought we were dead, we experienced the most rapid technological advancement in recorded history. We had motivation that most species lack, the knowledge that we were not alone, and that we needed to be ready for eventual contact. The holographic display changed again, showing the development of human technology over the past 2 centuries. The progression was staggering. From primitive nuclear technology to quantum energy systems in less than 50 years. From chemical rockets to faster-than-light capable vessels in under a century. From mechanical computers to quantum consciousness interfaces in 75 years. This rate of advancement should be impossible, Kiramoth protested. Most species take millennia to achieve this level of technology. Most species don't have the advantage we had, Dr. Chen replied. We knew we were racing against time. We knew that eventually someone would come looking. We knew we had to be ready. Dr. Chen led Kiramoth to another viewing area, this one showing Earth's orbital infrastructure. Massive space stations rotated slowly around the planet, their purposes clearly industrial and scientific. Ships moved between the stations and the planet's surface with the efficiency of a well-established spacefaring civilization. We've been spacefaring for over a century, Sarah explained. We have permanent colonies throughout the solar system, mining operations in the asteroid belt, research stations around the outer planets. We've even sent exploration missions to nearby star systems. Exploration missions? Kiramoth's voice rose an octave. You've achieved interstellar travel. Limited range so far, General Martinez admitted. But we've surveyed 17 nearby systems. We've identified 3 systems with potentially habitable worlds. We've been very careful not to encounter any galactic shipping lanes or Academy survey missions. The implications hit Kiramoth like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't just survived their apparent extinction. They had become one of the most advanced civilizations in known space, and they had done it in complete secrecy. They had developed technologies that the Academy didn't possess, explored regions of space that hadn't been surveyed, and maintained perfect operational security for over 2 centuries. What do you want? She asked finally. Why reveal yourselves now? Why to me? Dr. Chen smiled, and Kiramoth saw something in her expression that was both reassuring and slightly terrifying. It was the look of someone who held all the cards in a game that others didn't even know they were playing. Because it's time, Sarah said simply. We've learned everything we can from passive observation. We've developed our technology to the point where we can interact with galactic civilization as equals, rather than supplicants. And frankly, we've identified several problems with current galactic society that we believe we can help solve. Problems? Kiramoth asked. Another human, Dr. Kim, spoke up. Energy distribution inefficiencies that keep border worlds in poverty. Manufacturing techniques that produce unnecessary waste. Communication delays that prevent effective coordination across large distances. Medical technologies that could save millions of lives but haven't been developed because there's no profit motive. We've spent 2 centuries studying galactic civilization from the outside, Dr. Chen added. We've seen its strengths and its weaknesses. We believe humanity can contribute solutions to problems that have persisted for millennia. Kiramoth realized she was witnessing the most significant moment in galactic history. Humanity's emergence would change everything. Their technology would revolutionize galactic society, Their perspective as outside observers would challenge established systems and hierarchies. "The Academy will never believe me," she said. "Dr. Zethkar's reputation, the official reports." "Dr. Zethkar saw exactly what we wanted him to see," Dr. Chen replied. "Our holographic projection systems and electromagnetic spoofing made our world appear dead to his sensors. But we kept detailed records of his entire survey mission. We have complete files on his methodologies, his equipment specifications, and his personal background." The holographic display activated again, showing Kiramoth surveillance footage of Dr. Zethkar conducting his survey. The images were impossible. They showed human installations that had been completely invisible to the Academy's sensors. "We've been preparing for this revelation for decades," General Martinez explained. "We have complete documentation of our technological development, our social evolution, and our reasons for remaining hidden. We're ready to present ourselves to the galactic community." "But why me?" Kiramoth asked again. "Why not make formal contact with the Academy directly?" Dr. Chen's expression became serious. "Because formal first contact protocols would classify us as a newly emergent species requiring guidance and protection. We would be assigned a mentor civilization and slowly integrated into existing galactic structures. That's not acceptable. We intend to emerge as an established galactic power," Dr. Kim added. "We want to be recognized for what we've become, not treated as what we once were." Kiramoth understood. Humanity's emergence would be the most carefully orchestrated first contact event in galactic history. They would reveal themselves when and how they chose, with technology and capabilities that would demand respect rather than patronage. "What do you need from me?" she asked. Dr. Chen smiled again, and this time the expression was purely human, warm, hopeful, and slightly mischievous. "We need you to go back to the Academy and tell them the truth. Tell them that humanity is alive, thriving, and ready to join galactic civilization as equals. Tell them that we've been watching, learning, and preparing for this moment for over 2 centuries." Sarah stood and walked to the viewing window, looking out at the advanced civilization that humanity had built in secret. "Tell them that reports of our extinction were greatly exaggerated. Tell them that we're ready to share what we've learned and contribute to the betterment of galactic society. And tell them that the next time they want to survey our system, they should probably call ahead and make an appointment." Kiramoth looked around the room at the humans who had just changed the course of galactic history. In a few hours, she would return to her ship and begin the journey back to Academy space. In a few weeks, she would file the most important report in the Academy's long history. The galaxy was about to discover that one of its greatest assumptions had been completely wrong. Humanity was not extinct. They were not primitive. They were not in need of guidance or protection.